this research? Well, basically, most of my research over about 30 years now has always involved primary interviews, primary consultations at the grassroots. And this is especially relevant in terms of the feminisation of poverty, because it's very, very difficult to actually get reliable quantitative data on gender-differentiated poverty, particularly in countries such as Gambia. So I complemented my statistical searches, such as they were, with qualitative data, which comprised interviews and focus group discussions with women and men at the grassroots from different age groups. And then, last but not least, I also supplemented those with about 40 consultations with people involved in NGOs, development agencies, government departments, to basically corroborate or refute the kinds of findings I was getting on the ground. So, next. Sorry, it's not very clean, this. Now, why did I incorporate a perspective on generation, as well as gender, into my research on the feminisation of poverty? Well, the main reason for this was a sort of sense that how can the feminisation of poverty be happening when there's so much evidence to suggest that actually gaps between women and men are closing in many of those areas which we see as actually very important in terms of generating poverty. For example, education, gaps in employment and gaps in earnings. So how could this feminisation of poverty be going on in a situation where so many relevant gender gaps were closing? And it led me to think that maybe one of the reasons for the feminisation of poverty was because of demographic ageing, which of course, as we know, is going on in many parts of the global south, particularly marked perhaps in Latin America and the Caribbean, where we're getting, thanks to women's greater life expectancy, a progressive clustering of women in older age groups, particularly in what is referred to as the old. So we're thinking about 80 plus. And of course, poverty is not only associated with old age in general, although Penny might want to refute that, but with older women in particular, especially in light of the legacy of long-standing gender gaps, for example, in literacy, education, lack of pensions, and so forth. So I wondered to what extent the feminisation of poverty was something we could perhaps only apply to a certain age group of women. So that was some of the sort of questions I sort of set